What's going on, everyone? So, as promised, we are going to be doing a Scream 7 review. Went and saw it on Friday with my friend and the wife. We're going to get into it. From box office numbers, we're seeing huge results. What is it, like now almost 93 million this entire week or weekend opening or whatever it is worldwide. So far, uh, it's going to be a financial success. From what I'm seeing on the internet about the actual opinions about the movie itself, been very hit or miss. Very, very hit or miss. So I'm going to break down what I thought of the movie, where I think they went right, where I think they went wrong, and we'll kind of go from there. First off, I'll start with been a huge horror movie fan most of my life. Started from watching Hide and Seek back in like 2005. First horror movie I saw in the theaters was Paranormal Activity, and as a 10-year-old, we all know how that goes. Didn't go well at first, but obviously warmed up to it over the years. And ever since, I'd probably say the age of 14, I've been watching horror movies quite consistently. They're always in my cultural zeitgeist of things to watch. Um, Lately, haven't been catching up so much on newer stuff like Sinners, Weapons. Still have to watch a few of those ones, and maybe I'll do the reviews of those if you guys want them. But right now, just going to kind of hit it off with what I thought the movie did well. We're going to start at the beginning. That opening scene. Uh, Inventive and fun. And props off to that guy in the opening scene. Unfortunately, him and his girlfriend meet the demise anyway. But props off to that guy because he knew something was off about that animatronic the second time when they went up to it. So honestly, it's really, really fun that they implemented some kind of different way of introducing the first kill rather than just being as simple as calling and what's your favorite scary movie and all that other stuff. It was really nice to see that they did something different by keeping it almost quiet and making you believe that there was nothing wrong until all of a sudden that robot didn't move the way it was supposed to. um as well, I'm going to kind of rewind a little bit and mention that I was rather disappointed with my local theater up here in Algoma. We have Cineplex. I didn't go opening night, but I went the night after. And for there only being one or two showings that I would have missed, the fact that there was no cups, there was no promotional items for the movie was rather sad. Kind of sucked. Kind of sucked in that regard. Um, Other than that, it was just interesting that I had heard from other people that we did have stuff in the theater when they went opening night on Thursday, and when we went on Friday, there was absolutely nothing. So either they didn't order enough, or they didn't get a lot. So either one. Hopefully next time they get a little bit more, do a little bit better on that one. But we'll get back into the movie part of it. So after the boyfriend gets absolutely mangled, sliced right through the eye turns around and everything else. Gruesome kill. Fantastic. The girlfriend doesn't get it too much better. She gets a quick up the stairs and hanging off the ceiling light, as we saw in the trailer right behind me. As we saw, she meets a similar end. And then the killer comes out of the house and burns the house down. Really not much else to lay out here other than the fact that they nailed every single area of the Mocker house. Obviously, that was by design. But the fact that they really took the time to make it look like a real Airbnb was rather interesting. And the fact that this is what people do with their, famous houses, or that's what they buy famous houses for nowadays, is rather interesting. Um, I honestly thought it was a little bit weird because I know that Stu Macher's house in the original was out of the way and it was way off in the bush, but it almost felt like when that opening car scene comes in and they come up the driveway, that driveway is way too long. Because if you look at the original, the road is like maybe 15 to 25 feet from the front of the house. It's not very far at all, but this looks like they've really kind of just redone the road around it. So I don't know if that was just a plot point of the movie or if they were just trying to give the viewer the idea that they were really by themselves here in the middle of nowhere, and then Ghostface is all of a sudden there. Interesting thoughts, interesting ideas, but can't control every part of the movie, right? So my biggest gripe with this entire movie is the fact that it relies so much on AI. So much. Way too much for a movie about being meta. I understand that we're moving towards the generation of AI and how all of that kind of works. but I really was hoping for them to not pull that card with literally everything. Every plot point in the movie seemed like it circled back to the idea of AI, deep fakes, using someone that isn't actually there. And we'll get a little bit more into that. But what I thought was really interesting was how they introduced Stu. Sydney gets a phone call, sounds like she's talking to Stu on the other end. And then all of a sudden, she gets the FaceTime notification from the same caller, and it's actually Stu. Again, we're going to get into the fact that it uses way too much AI because, as we know now after seeing the movie, there is no Stu. I'm kind of bummed out about that. I was really, really hoping to get Stu back. I know that it obviously doesn't make a whole lot of sense for him to be crushed by a TV, but at the same time, pretty sure in Scream 5, Chad got cut up way too much and way too much blood loss for him to survive 6, and then now go into 7 and survive 7. As well, I just thought it was interesting that if what is to be believed after the movie, there are already rumors out for Scream 8, and a lot of people are saying if you guys don't bring Stu back, this is going to be a big problem. Sorry about that. Technical issues as we're getting used to how to film these. But where I was that since there is rumors to have Scream 8 already on the table, if they do bring Stu back for Scream 8, that would kind of fix, I think, a little bit of the issue that this movie faced with how its killers came about. And we'll get to that towards the end. But some of the other massive things that, were right towards the beginning part of the movie is that they killed one of them as soon as they got to Sydney's house. Within 10 minutes, I'd say about 30 minutes of the movie, you had one Ghostface dead. And that's where you kind of had to believe that there was more than two on this one, because there's no way that they just killed off one just to have have the other one by themselves for the entire duration of the movie. So you had to kind of know that there was going to be something else at play. The fact that Ghostface was hiding in Sydney's attic, as we're seeing back here, as they're getting ready to kind of take off and leave and disappear, while Joel McHale's character, Mark, who is the chief of police in Pine Grove, he's staying behind to hopefully find this guy and get a hold of everything and fix the situation at hand. But surprisingly, that whole trailer scene where we see Mark get absolutely mangled, he survives. He survives all that, and right to the end of the movie where he ends up making it as a survivor anyway. So it is nice to see that at least then Sydney didn't lose everybody on the way out, but it did feel like the movie didn't have very many stakes to it. It felt like something was missing in terms of actually feeling that there was something to lose, because of the fact that it also seemed a little too easy when the kids went to the bar that Ghostface, one, knew where they were, two, got in way too easily when all the doors were locked, and then besides even all the nonsense that happens in the bar, the boyfriend ends up having all the deep fakes on his computer when they're trying to leave and get to Sydney. Why didn't you just mention something, Ben? Why didn't you just say, hey, I'm working on deep fakes here, like this is actually possible, this can work? But they didn't really talk about that, and it made him look like a killer rather than completely innocent, which is what he was, and he ends up paying the price for it. And that's just like another, again, it's a trope that most horror movies have where it's like, oh, believe the boyfriend because it is the boyfriend usually, and then all of a sudden it ends up not being him. I really, really did like, especially the fact that we got to see all those legacy characters back. Mrs. Loomis, Roman, and Stu. Weirdly enough, don't know how they got all the AI to work with the fact that they both had bullet holes in their heads the last time we saw them from 3 and 2. But other than that, thought it was fantastic that they were at least back in some capacity. I really, really wish at the end of the day that we would have seen a little bit more Stu, but at the same time, can't really control too much of that, but it would have been good to see him in actual person rather than just through the screen. The actual kills inside that bar, though, Lucas getting put onto the beer tap and then the beer coming out of his mouth. I'm not going to say the other words because you know where it's at, but that was just an insane kill. I don't think I've seen something like that in a long time. And sometimes even it just comes all across as funny, but that's a genuinely crazy kill. But it is rather interesting as well that Chad and Mindy, two survivors from two previous films, onto their third survival, got taken out a little too easily, I think. Again, Chad literally got stabbed like 17 times in the last movie or in this first appearance, and Mindy got messed up as well. But the fact that they were able to kind of fix that issue and just kind of show up at the end with the wow, Gale Weathers. Don't know why the name was missing my face, but the fact that they just showed up with Gale Weathers right towards the end and that was pretty much it was kind of unfortunate to see those legacy characters now not get a lot more screen time or a lot more, hey, we can help, rather than let's just kind of help them figure out who Ghostface is to no avail, and then to find out only at the end that it was somebody that really I don't think made any sense to be Ghostface. Like the fact that it was Sydney's neighbor, Melissa, and the orderly from the psychiatric hospital doesn't really make sense to me. The orderly would have only known about Stu if Stu had been at that hospital. In reality, like he would have only known certain pieces and things, not all of this information to find out later on that, oh, Sydney's alive, Sydney's living in Pine Grove and all the other stuff. There was a bit of a disconnect. There was a bit of a disconnect, the fact that it was the orderly. Again, like you kind of see the look on his face when you first get to the hospital, and kind of felt like something was off the way he was looking at Sydney and the way he was looking at Gale. But at the same time, for him to know all that information, he had to have been somewhat connected. And the fact that, again, Gale brought up multiple times during this movie, it's always someone from your past. What past was this orderly a part of? What did he have to do with any of this? This Carl guy who was the first Ghostface that was killed by Gale when she drives the SUV over him. What did he have? He was a separate killer that killed 3 girls at another point in time, not even connected to the entire series. So then all of a sudden, the neighbor is also involved because she was so obsessed with how Sydney was a survivor and everything else, and she made her story about her. She was like, well, my husband was abusive, so I'm going to turn around and get rid of him. Okay, but that also doesn't make sense for you to go after Sydney. What? Like, you want to be her? You can't. It doesn't make any sense to even try that idea, only because of the fact that it was kind of a dead giveaway that you would have had something to do with your husband's death, because they don't even explore that in the movie at all. They don't mention anything about it except for the fact that she's friends with her at the beginning, and she's only on screen for 5 minutes in the beginning, and then the last 15 to just kind of let that go. However, the absolute end where she has her entire face removed by objects. If you've seen the movie, I'm not going to get too deep into it, but if you've seen the movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That's just nuts. She comes out of nowhere and just, again, does the whole casual, let me yell before I actually go at you kind of thing, only to find out that that wasn't the right call. And Lily gets her face turned into spaghetti noodles and sauce, I guess. But all in all, throughout this entire movie, it felt very, much like this video is going to come across, felt very scattered, because of the fact that there were certain plot points and holes that I thought were just missing. And I'm hoping that if we do get Scream 8, that it's gonna be somewhat more back to the original, back to what we all fell in love with as fans. I mean, hello, what we all fell in love with as horror fans, especially about this movie in particular, in this franchise, is the fact that it made fun of typical horror movies and tropes and things like that. Like, don't go off alone. Don't say I'll be right back. Don't be boinking. Stuff like that. And that's what brought us a lot to this franchise in the first place, that it made fun of itself, but then also reinvented itself at the same time. While this movie was very inventive in some kills and some of the scenes itself, it just relied too much on that AI aspect. It could have done something a little bit different had it got rid of that AI aspect. But other than that, guys, that's my Scream 7 review. Again, it's going to come across a little patchy. I had notes all over the place on it because I was trying not to take them in the movie theater, because we don't do that kind of thing. Took them all at home after the movie. But again, I would probably say this is a solid 3 out of 10. It would have to be labeled, in my opinion, as the worst in the franchise. 1, 2, and 3 you can intermingle into top 3 positions, and I'm not mad at that opinion either way. But yeah, solid 3 out of 10. Just not exactly what I was hoping to see after hyping up this whole idea of Stu possibly being alive and all that other stuff. But honestly, let me know what you guys think. I'd love to hear from you. Please subscribe if you would love to, and I'll check you out in the next one. Take care.